We are having Jerry Gidel back to our program to speak about the corn and soybean market in the week that was just passed. And he's going to speak also about the waste report and the weekly exports in the United States. Right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So Jerry Gidel, we started the week with soybeans going lower, and what do you think of the prices as of now, Friday? We are recording this program.
Well, it's kind of a post-holiday kind of doldrums here, I guess you'd have to say. To some extent, the market activity here hadn't seen a lot of official news from China over the last, it's been, I think, just before the November crop report. Now we're going up on next week. We're going to have the December one on Chinese soybeans. And I think that started to weigh on people here. Also, the weather scenario was still, last week, still looking for limited kind of moisture across many areas of Brazil. And that maybe some rain in parts of Argentina and that. But in general, that's what the attitude was. But then the forecast changed a little bit on Monday. The weekly shipments were also a little bit down here for last week, which is not surprising. It's the Thursday day was actually a U.S. holiday, and we've been pushing these export people here pretty tough here and loading things. So having less this last week is not surprising, from there. So, in general, the U.S. exports, as I've been kind of alluding to here the last few weeks, this is a time of year when things kind of slow down a little bit and people take another look at things and say, well, do I need it now, or should I wait to see how things are going to develop here in South America? There's also ideas that there was going to be, and still is, chances for maybe some better rains down there from that point. But that started things out a little bit on the defensive here. In today's exports, yesterday's export sales were down to, 15 million after seeing numbers at 80 and 90 million, or even up to 100 on differences from week to week. We're way up here. We are, we're over 1.9 billion bushels already in the books. That's a huge number. But there's the attitude that, the USDA just had to go ahead and make some changes in export sales for the WASDE report next week. But I guess that's our next topic here, I think, to be looking at here in that regard in the U.S. Or in the markets attitude right now.
Yeah, so what are you expecting for next week? We are going to have the waste report, and we are having an expectation of boost in the energy markets because of the coming vaccines.
Well, it's interesting. I think you're kind of alluding to what's happened today in the thing. We had very poor U.S. Jobs report, lots of negative sense. But the attitude is that in the stock market, at least, and maybe even in the energy markets, that the vaccine's around the corner and we're all going to be driving like crazy sometime here in the next few weeks. So I'd have to say that this is not the time of year when you traditionally have as much driving to begin with. And I still think that there's not going to be that many people rushing to be down their downtown offices or other things along the way. So the energy side of this thing is interesting, because I think that's maybe even part of the reason why the corn market was a little sluggish this week, was the fact that the U.S. ethanol update on a weekly basis saw the production level go down about, I think it was 16,000. It's still a very impressive level, but the key thing was that stocks went up up about, well, I think it was 5 to 7% in 1 week. Was the biggest jump we've had in quite some time, over 21 million gallons of stocks. Now, that's still way low, and I know that everybody wants to make quick judgments as to what's happening on things, but in general, cautionary note there on the energy side and the ethanol demand in the U.S. I think it's going to be pretty decent, better than I think people were anticipating after what happened last spring. But at the same time, we're not going to be back at last year's levels or above. I'd have to say, let's look into April or May when we finally get close to a driving season, and maybe we'll have some vaccines at that point that we can talk about that are going to help the general public. Because at this point, the first batches of vaccines are going to end up going to hospital people, first responders, nursing homes. All these things really doesn't put a tremendous amount of kickback in the society, and hopefully we can have a few restaurants left in the U.S. that will be able to stay open through this whole thing. It's really touch and go in the U.S. on the economic side of things. But the big picture, of course, is next Thursday's crop report. Wow, that I know everybody's kind of saying, well, geez, they should change exports. They should change this. Yeah, the demand's good. Problem is, with this little dip that's happened here in the soybean exports, corn's not really picked up dramatically. It was better than it has been on sales this week. I think it was up around 50 million in that. But in the same regard, I went back and looked at the last 5 years of what the USDA has done in changing their demand numbers in corn and soybeans. And only 2 out of the 5 years, and they're not exactly the same years, by the way, that they changed anything in the demand side. 3 out of the 5 years they didn't. 2 of the years they did. In soybeans, they made a 25 million adjustment in soybeans was actually the same. They made the same adjustments in soybeans and exports in both of it. In corn, they actually did see an increase in ethanol 1 year and a decrease in exports the other. And that was the adjustments we had, and both of them were relatively minor, as I talked about, 25 million. We're not talking about big time adjustments here in the USDA's numbers, because the fact that we have quite a bit of uncertainty as to what the final crop size will be here. As I mentioned here in the last few weeks, I still feel like there's a half a bushel maybe in beans and a bushel more in corn that could take off. And so that makes things interesting to begin with.
And how much do you think the protein sector is going to help the corn price?
Well, the interesting twist on that is we've kind of said the hog side has maybe slowed down here in the U.S. And chickens are always kind of going up along the way. Cattle, it doesn't really hugely impact the protein crush. And really, we're kind of good reminder there about what happened here earlier this week. We did have a record and a very impressive 195.5 or 6 million bushels of soybeans, and took the previous high by 3 or 4 million. And that, I think there's more of a restocking situation, that kind of stuff. I think that is, if there's going to be one chance that the USDA might change something on this coming report, could be the U.S. crush number by 10 or 15 million from there. In essence, to say, okay, I'll tip my hat to this big, impressive number we've had. But at the same time, the USDA, and particularly the soybean area from the World Board and that here in Washington. I've seen the fellow that's involved with that for many years be pretty stubborn to make a change this early in the season. So, but I think it's good note, and that's an area that the protein and the other twist of it here that kind of helped the bean rally yesterday was the fact that the Canadian canola supply was shaved, and that helped the recovery we had in the prices along with, because if you looked at the U.S. exports, you wouldn't figure out why we were up 15 cents. But combination of mostly in the veg oil world, because that's really canolas and that part of it, along with palm oil, has been the kind of supporting factor in this soybean arena here for, probably the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay, Jerry, I think that was it for now. Thanks a lot.
Oh, it's always good to be with you, Louis, and we'll look forward to what we can discuss with next week's supply demand report on Thursday. And I encourage producers that have some late season cash needs to take advantage of the current corn and soybean prices. Having some Christmas cash in your pocket is always good.